Many years ago, in the beautiful town of Abakaliki, there lived a woman named Akuchinyere. Akuchinyere was a hairdresser and was married to a man named Obasi, who was a carpenter. And they were both very poor and sometimes lived at the mercy of neighbors. And despite the fact that they were poor, they had several children. In a space of 15 years of being married, they had given birth to over 10 children, although some had died due to poverty-related causes. Obasi was bent on literally fulfilling the scripture that says, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth," despite the fact that he did not have the resources to care for his family. Each time they could not afford to eat, Akuchinyere would go to her best friend Nne to either beg for money or foodstuffs. And Nne would go ahead and advise Akuchinyere, saying, "Are you not tired of giving birth? Don't you know that it is the woman that has to experience all the stress of pregnancy and childbearing? You can see that you and your husband are struggling to feed yourself and your children, yet you keep having children. Why not go to a health center and do family planning? Your husband does not even need to know about it. And besides, it is free. You don't need to pay a kobo. Before one day you will die while giving birth to. Have mercy on yourself." Nne said, looking very worried. I have heard all that you said, but you must also understand that children are gifts from the Lord. Besides, it is important to have as many children as possible because you do not know the one that will become a governor one day, or the first lady, or that will be so rich like Dangote and save our family from poverty. Akuchinyere, replied Nne. Okay, if you say so. Nne replied, as she lent her friend Akuchinyere some money, even though she knew that she would never pay her back that money. In less than 2 years again, Akuchinyere had given birth to 2 more children. Her neighbors and friends had officially given up on her. They stopped advising her and just simply minded their business. But things began to get harder for Akuchinyere and her husband Obasi. They could barely afford to feed all the hungry mouths in their home 1 square meal a day. And her neighbors and friends were no longer willing to help, since she had refused to listen to their advice to go do family planning. So Akuchinyere and her husband decided to give out their first daughter out to a wealthy couple who lived in the big city of Lagos to work as a house help so as to reduce the mouths that they feed. So during Christmas, Akuchinyere and her husband gave out their first daughter, Ada, who was 12 years old at the time, to a wealthy couple named Omego and his wife, Nkoli. Ada cried and cried, but had no choice than to follow them. Ada followed her new uncle, Omego, and his wife, Nkoli, to their home in Lagos. Ada was very shocked to see how wealthy they were and how beautiful their home was. They were practically living in a mansion. A few days later, Ada settled into her new home. Her auntie had only one son named Junior. So Ada would do all the chores and feed the baby before going to school. Ada was very happy because back in her father's house, she was not even going to school because her parents could barely afford to feed them, not to talk of sending any of them to school. Ada was very happy and she was very brilliant, and one day dreamt of becoming a lawyer. So she took her education very seriously. Her auntie and uncle were very nice to her and they treated her very well. And so, in turn, Ada took very good care of their son Junior. Everything seemed to be going on just fine. and Ada was grateful that her parents had sent her away. A few years later, Ada had grown into a beautiful young girl. And one Christmas season, her uncle and auntie had allowed her go back home to Abakaliki to go spend 2 weeks with her parents. Her parents were so happy to see her after a long time. However, Ada received the shock of her life. Her mother was pregnant again. And not only was she pregnant, she realized that the whole house was empty. Her siblings were not around. It was just her parents that were at home, and they were all looking fresh and robust. And when she asked her parents where her siblings were, they informed her that they had given them out to live with other people. Ada could not believe her eyes. She wondered why her parents, who knew that they could not fend for their children, will still be expecting another baby. And if they did not even feel bad that their children were scattered all over the country and living with different people. Ada swore to herself that she was never going to come back to her parents' house because she could see that her parents did not have any good plans for them. She told herself that she was going to be very good to her uncle and auntie so that they will be pleased with her and maybe sponsor her university education. The little time she spent with her parents, Ada saw that all the people who her siblings lived with had sent someone with foodstuffs and money to her parents. She realized that her parents were using their children to make money. So they send them off to live with people, and in return, these people give them money and foodstuffs. This now explained why her parents were looking so fresh and robust, and were even still expecting another child. Ada was furious with her parents and was ashamed that they were her parents. A few days later, Ada returned to Lagos to her uncle and auntie's home with a firm resolution to make sure that she pleases them so that they may just sponsor her education to the university. And so, Ada continued to live with them. And after a few years, Ada had finished secondary school and had passed her WAEC with flying colors. And her auntie Nkoli was very pleased with her. Ada had grown into a beautiful young lady by this time, and her auntie was still contemplating whether or not to sponsor her to the university, considering the financial implication. But as Ada stayed at home more frequently, Omego, her uncle, began to notice that Ada was no longer the little girl they had picked up from their little town. She had grown into a woman. Her figure and waist began to appeal to him, and he began to lust after Ada. He wanted to have her by all means. So Omego began to make some move towards Ada. Ada noticed it and tried her best to avoid her uncle Omego. She would even go as far as wearing big clothes to conceal her figure. Yet, Omego would not stop. Ada did not know what to do, whether or not to tell her auntie. But how would her auntie believe her? Ada thought aloud to herself while crying. So Ada decided that she was going to try her best to ward off her uncle Omego for as long as she could, and pray fervently that her auntie would decide to send her to the university very quickly so she could escape all her uncle's advances. However, one night, when Ada was clearing the dishes, Omego thought that his wife was fast asleep and so tried to force himself on Ada. And it was while they were struggling that his wife woke up and caught them both in the act. Immediately, Nkoli screamed and Omego distanced himself from Ada and said, "She's the one that's been trying to seduce me. Oh, I wanted to tell you, but I did not know how to. I promise you it's her fault." Omego screamed, pointing angrily at Ada. And Ada began to cry and say, no, no, he's lying. He tried to force himself on me while I was washing plates. Ada said, weeping profusely. Nkoli stared at the both of them in shock and confusion. Deep in her heart, she knew that Ada was telling the truth, but did not want to lose her home or marriage. So she looked at Ada and replied angrily, saying, first thing tomorrow morning, you are leaving my house. Nkoli screamed angrily. That night, Ada broke down in tears, weeping profusely. All her dreams of ever going to the university came crashing down on her. So the following day, Ada returned to her village. Her parents were very worried. What are you doing here? Why are you back home? Her mother, Akuchinyere, asked, looking very worried. Ada narrated everything that had happened. And her father angrily looked at her and said, so why did you come back now? We don't have any money to care for an extra mouth though. You have to find a way to fend for yourself. As you can see, we have 3 new children. Obasi replied, squeezing his face. Ada could not believe all that her parents had said. They did not care about her or the trauma that she had just experienced. So in the days that followed, Ada had to do all sorts of farm work just so she could earn some money and feed herself. Meanwhile, her mother would cook food and serve every other person in the house except her. And things continued like this for a long time. Ada became very sad and desperate. She wanted to leave her little town and go to the university as soon as possible. But she knew that her menial job of farming would not be able to give her the money that she needed to see herself through the university. So one day, Ada met a young man named Emeka, and soon enough, they started dating. Emeka was a tout and had no job, but had so much money. Ada did not care whether or not he was a tout. She was just happy that he had money, and so she no longer needed to work at the farm all day. Emeka gave her so much money, much more than she asked for, and this made Ada very happy. Ada started coming home with foodstuffs which she had bought from the money that Emeka had given her. So now there was more than enough to eat in her home. Meanwhile, her parents never for one day asked Ada where she got all the money she used in buying all the foodstuffs from. They did not care. All that mattered to them was the money she was bringing back home. One day, Ada was tired. She wanted more than the handouts that Emeka was giving her. She wanted to be taught how to fish and not just be given fish. So one day she approached her boyfriend Emeka and said, Emeka, please, what do you do? I need to make a lot of money just like you. Not just the ones that you give me. I promise you, I can do anything. No, I'm very hardworking if I put my mind to it. Ada said, looking very desperate. Emeka simply smiled and said, okay, I will call you when it is time. Emeka replied. Ada did not even know what to expect, but she was just grateful that Emeka had agreed to teach her. One day, Emeka called her to follow him somewhere, and upon getting there, Ada realized that Emeka was a kidnapper. She was very shocked, but it was too late to turn back. So Ada participated in that particular operation. She cared for the victims, followed Emeka to collect the ransom, and also release the victims. And after that operation, Emeka gave Ada a whooping sum of 5 million naira. Ada was so happy. She immediately went and rented a house and moved her parents out of their old home. She also furnished the apartment to taste and also bought a brand new car. Their lives had changed overnight. But yet, not once did her parents ask her how she got that kind of money. Instead, they praised and hailed her. And so, Ada continued to go for operations with Emeka and continued to enjoy her life. She no longer even thought of going back to the university, even though she had made more than 20 million naira from several kidnapping operations. Yet, she no longer talked about going back to school. She was busy cruising in her beautiful car, splurging money on shoes, clothes, and anything she thought of. However, one day, Ada had followed Emeka for another operation, but this time they murdered someone, but were caught by the local vigilante group. The local vigilante group held them and tied them till the next morning and then brought them to an open field. Meanwhile, the word had spread round town that the notorious gang that was terrorizing the whole of Abakaliki and neighboring towns had been caught. So everyone rushed down to see who it was. And Akuchinyere and Obasi were not left behind. But upon getting to the field, Akuchinyere and Obasi were shocked. Their first daughter was part of this notorious gang. They could not believe their eyes that their own daughter, Ada, was an armed robber. Ada, why? Why? How could you do this to me? Akuchinyere said, sobbing and weeping bitterly. And so, the local vigilante tried to set both Ada, Emeka, and their other crew on fire. Ada immediately screamed and said, please, please, before you kill me, please grant me just one request. Please, let me speak to my mother. I have something to say that is just for her ears alone. Ada said, crying and begging. And because they were going to kill her anyway, they granted her request. And immediately Akuchinyere came close to her daughter Ada. Ada bit off her mother's ears and screamed at her saying, Mama, you have ruined my life. Mama, you did not care for me. You won't even give me food. You were busy giving birth to children as if you're a chicken or a rat and left me to fend for myself. And when I moved us into a bigger house, buying you and Papa car, things, food, clothes, everything, not once did any of you ask me how or where I got that kind of money from. You both never asked for one day what a secondary school graduate will be doing with that kind of money. All you were interested in was just that I brought the money. I was your goose that laid the golden egg. Mama, you are wicked. You're not worthy to be called parents. You're not worthy to have children. You scatter your children all over the country, living with different people. Mama, you have ruined my life and I hate you, Ada said, crying and weeping profusely. And the local vigilante went ahead and set Ada, Emeka, and their crew on fire, and they all burned to death. Akuchinyere fell on the floor, weeping and wailing profusely. Obasi was also crying. They knew that they had failed at their primary responsibility as parents. They wished they could turn back the hands of time, but it was too late. They were inconsolable. Hi besties, it's your favorite storyteller, Omalicha again. Thank you so much for watching my story to the end. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. What do you think? Do you think that Ada deserved to end up the way she did? Considering that it was a lack of parental, guidance that made her make such wrong decisions? And also, why is it that most times people who are poor are the ones who end up giving birth to 10, 15 children? What do you think is the mentality behind that action? Is it that it's ignorance? Maybe they are not aware that there's something called family planning. Or do you think that it's just, sheer hope They are hopeful that one of their children will rescue them from the claws of poverty. I would really like to hear your thoughts on this one. Please share them with me. And please support your home girl, Omalicha, by subscribing to my channel, liking my videos, and sharing with your loved ones. So now, till I come your way again with more interesting stories, bye.